nation. For over 20 years, the interests of working families have been sold off to luxury real estate developers, Wall Street banks, and for-profit healthcare corporations. And for 20 years, our rents have been going up, healthcare has been getting more expensive, and our incomes are staying the same. Not all Democrats are the same, and I am proud to be the only Democrat in this race that rejects all corporate money and champions and advances improved and expanded Medicare for all, a federal jobs guarantee, tuition-free public college, and the abolition of ICE. Now, I am proud to have inspired many of adaptations in this race, but what I think is really important is that in a district that is 85% Democrat, overwhelmingly working class, and 70% people of color, we deserve a working class champion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Crowley.
First of all, thanks a lot for this evening, and it's great to see you, and thanks for participating this evening as well. I think it's a good opportunity for us to have an exchange of thoughts and ideas about the issues of concern to our constituency. Born and raised here in New York City, I live in Woodside, Queens. I understand the needs of our community. I know that my constituency is looking for good paying jobs. They're looking for affordable health care. They're hoping that they can send their children to college and get a higher education. And they're also looking for retirement security. That's what really is the meat and butter of what my constituency is looking for. And I'm also proud to represent one of the most diverse districts in the United States. You name it, we got it. Every facet of it, from Queens to the Bronx, is full of diversity, and I draw from that strength, and I bring it back to Washington to fight against the #1 threat against all of us, and that is this president, Donald Trump.
Okay, thank you both. I want to put my first question to you, Mr. Crowley. Your opponent says that it is a conflict of interest to simultaneously run the Queens County organization, serve in Congress, and also pursue and have obligations at the national level. I know you've been campaigning around the country as well. She has called on you to resign as party chairman. Does she have a point to the extent that, as county leader, you have a lot to say about who gets on and off the ballot without a fight, who gets help with petitions, who gets legal challenges, and so forth?
I'm very proud of my record of electing progressive Democrats in Queens County, whether it's in the judiciary or in elective office. Virtually every person in Queens County is a Democrat, in no small part because of my efforts. I've also moved to diversify that representation as well. The first Asian American ever elected on the East Coast to the United States House of Representatives, Grace Meng. I helped get her elected. When it comes to Francisco Moya, the first Ecuadorian ever elected to the state legislature and now to the city council, I helped him get elected. When it comes to Ron Kim, the first Korean American ever elected to the state legislature, I helped elect Ron Kim, and a myriad of others, from African Americans to Latinos to Asians. I'm very proud of that, and I'm also very proud of the work that I do nationally. As a congressman, I'd be helping Democrats in my boroughs, in Bronx and Queens anyway, but I also have taken on the road to nationally helping Democrats win, because I think it's critical, facing what we are today with this president, that we win back the House of Representatives at all costs. We have to win, because if we don't, incredible serious damage will be done to our democracy.
Okay.
Well, I just think it's completely inappropriate to be chairman of a local Democratic Party. Imagine if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders was the chairman of the national DNC while responsible for their own endorsement and the endorsement of others. Moreover, this is not just about diversity and race, but this is about class. And what we just saw in the 82nd Street rezoning, for example, City Councilman Moya approved over overwhelming community protest, the introduction of a development that is going to displace working families, particularly immigrant families in these communities. This is being used as an arm to exert the influence of luxury real estate developers in New York City.
I had a question for you. I saw an FEC filing indicating that you initially planned to run in the 15th district, not the 14th. The 15th is where the incumbent is Jose Serrano. What made you decide to change your mind?
I live in the 14th, and so that I think is what's most important. I was born in the 14th district, and I think that this is the race that's most important. You know, we need to get corporate money out of politics, and Congressman Serrano is part of the Progressive Caucus, and I think he's doing a good job.
Okay, let me
Can I respond a bit on that? I'm also a progressive. I consider myself a very progressive congressman and a proud Democrat first and foremost. But I will suggest about the project we talked about in 82nd Street, and of the support of the community board, support of the local officials, and also the support of Melinda Katz, the borough president of Queens.
Correct.
And it is 100% affordable housing that's been built there as well. So I think we, to get involved in those local issues, you have to understand, and I understand very well 82nd Street. My offices are on 82nd Street. I know that community very, very well.
But the community board did not vote in approval of this rezoning. I was there. I spoke out against it. And what we saw was an almost unanimous vote against the rezoning.
What is it you don't like about the rezoning?
Well, for first of all, the lease that they had signed with Target has basically a non-compete built into it. So it's going to displace every single small business in that block. The affordable housing is not sufficient. And I think many of us who actually live here in New York City understand that these affordable housing definitions are much higher than what the average New Yorker can actually afford.
Okay, it's not the first time people have disagreed about what development should look like in a given area. Let me ask you something, Mr. Crowley. Your opponent has criticized you for raising your kids in the Washington, D.C. area rather than in the district. What went into your decision to enroll your kids in Virginia schools?
First of all, I'm a lifelong New York City resident. I was born and raised here, and I live in Woodside, Queens, and I'm very proud of my being born and raised and instilled with all the values that I've taken to Washington from Woodside and Queens from my parents. My dad was a police officer, my mom was an immigrant. And those are the values I take back, especially now, given what we're facing in this administration. When I think of the daily attacks that this president has made upon my constituents, whether it was going after them in terms of the Muslim ban, I was down at JFK Airport. I was there helping connect constituents with their lawyers, being the go-between between the border agents and making sure that people's rights were protected. It's because I know this community. I was born and raised here. I love the city. I went to school here. I went to college in New York City. This is my borough. This is my city, and I love it very much.
Okay.
Well, I just don't think that if a person loves their community, they would choose to raise their family here. They would choose to send their kids to our schools. They would choose to drink our water and breathe our air. And I think that it takes away a fundamental interest and understanding of our communities when we raise our families somewhere else.
Well,
on the point, I would say, I was elected by the taxpayers to represent them in Washington, D.C. And that's what I'm doing. When I'm in Washington and working in Washington, I'm there to protect their interests, especially from the onslaught from this president. When it comes to my kids, I'd like to keep my kids out of it. Quite frankly, it's difficult to raise a family as it is. I know that people in my constituency and everywhere, it's very hard to raise a family this year. This job requires me to be away from them for a very long time, and I'm just doing the best that I can, quite frankly, as a father.
Oh, in fact, I wanted to ask you about that. I know as part of your bio is you had a father who was a small businessman in the South Bronx, but you were raised in the suburbs, so you felt a connection to both places. Isn't that sort of the same thing, except it's, 700 miles instead of 70 miles?
I think the difference is that I was 4 years old, and it was my parents that had made a choice in my life. But I know that when I have children, I want to keep them here. I want to send them to our schools.
Okay. Candidates stand by. We're going to take a short break. We'll continue this debate in just a minute. Stay with us.
The armed forces are in shock after
Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working-class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has New York been changing for? Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us, and we deserve a champion. It's time to fight for a New York that working families can afford. That's why I'm running for Congress. This race is about people versus money. We've got people, they've got money. It's time we acknowledge that not all Democrats are the same. That a Democrat who takes corporate money, profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, cannot possibly represent us. What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, a federal jobs guarantee, and criminal justice reform. We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this. It takes political courage. A New York for the many is possible. It's time for one of us. Vote for Alexandria Ocasio Cortez on June 26th.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are holding a Democratic primary debate for the 14th Congressional District. We promised you both a chance to ask each other a question. We're going to begin with you, Mr. Crowley.
Well, thank you. Ms. Ocasio Cortez, this is, I think, a very exciting time for our party. We have a chance, and I can feel it on the ground, we can feel it all over the country, quite frankly, to have a chance to win back the House of Representatives. People know what's at stake. They know that this president is more than just an existential threat to our way of life. Their lives are at stake. And so what I believe is that we have to unite in our party, make sure we're united when we go into this election in November. I'm willing to make a pledge tonight that if you win this primary and have the support of the people of the 14th Congressional District, that I will fully endorse and work for your, and vociferously and robustly work for your election to Congress. My question to you is, will you do the same if the people of the 14th Congressional District choose me as their nominee in November?
Well, Representative Crowley, I represent not just my campaign, but a movement. And I am proud to be endorsed by organizations like Democratic Socialists of America, the Movement for Black Lives, Muslims for Progress, and so on. And as a result, we govern ourselves democratically. So I would be happy to take that question to our movement for a vote and respond in the affirmative or however they respond.
Okay, your chance to ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, Crain's reported in late last year a very large surge of donations from luxury real estate developers ahead of your role in the city council, speaking about in 2009, the House Ethics House Ethics Committee opened an investigation around your fundraising activities as connected to Dodd-Frank. And we also saw from the Sunlight Foundation another surge from luxury real estate developers ahead of your authoring and passing of the bill related to FERPDA. So my question is, how can working families in our district trust that you can fight for them when it matters? You know, we have an administration here that is obviously dangerous, but it's not enough to fight Trump. We have to fight the issues that made his rise in the first place.
Well, I see things a little differently. When it came to the issue of Dodd-Frank, I bucked against the tide of Wall Street, big banks, when I supported, and not only supported, but helped author the Dodd-Frank legislation. And we can talk to Barney Frank. He'll tell you exactly how engaged I was in helping make that become law against the interests of Wall Street and the banks. I bucked the system when I supported the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and I know you have some issues with it. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Barack Obama to make sure that that became the law of the land, that now 131,000 people in this district now have insurance that didn't have prior to that. And we largely, Errol, I think, agree on the issues. There really isn't much daylight and separation between the two of us. But there is an issue where we do disagree, and that is on the issue of guns. Because my opponent has said that she doesn't believe that the laws of New York City should be or can be applicable necessarily to the laws of New Mexico. She said that the flexibility would need to be...
That's incorrect.
No,
where'd you get that?
People can read it on Reddit at a forum. On Reddit, on a forum that you participated in. But listen, I just think that that's wrong. I think we need a national approach. We need to end. We need to end bump stocks. We need to end automatic weapons and bring back the assault weapons ban. We need to have full background checks without any loopholes. That's the way in which I think we need to approach this issue. We just simply disagree.
So, aside from trolling internet forums, I think that one of the things that we need to really take a look at, let me make things very clear. I believe in a ban on assault weapons. I believe in a ban on bump stocks. Not only that, I also don't take money from private equity groups that have holdings in gun manufacturers either. So I think that there's really doesn't even come close, and there is no daylight here. You know, in terms of the fact that, you know, neither person sitting here at this table is a Republican.
Errol, I do think that the folks in Parkland, they don't believe in flexibility. The folks in Newtown, they don't believe in flexibility. And the people here in New York don't believe in flexibility either. If you can go to Pennsylvania, it has different laws than New York City, and dump guns in the back. 74% of the guns on the streets in New York City come from outside the city. Flexibility is not the answer here.
Let me change topics here. I want to pick up on something you suggested before about the PACs and some of the corporate and real estate interests that have supported your opponent. Isn't it true that one person's special interest is another's legitimate community voice, right? I mean, if elected, would you refuse to take money, say, from labor union PACs?
Well, I reject all corporate PACs. So what that means is corporations that lobby for their own special interests. But I have worked with political PACs in order to get things done when they are constituted by people. But corporations and corporate PACs are really the real problem. About 99% of my opponent's donations come from corporations, big money, and lobbyist groups, and 80% of all of my donations to my campaign are less than $200.
That just isn't true. The people of this district know me. They know my work ethic. They know where my heart lies. And that's why they've sent me back to Congress again and again, and I believe they will again, because of what we're threatened with right now. And what we need right now is experience. And someone who can be a champion and a proven leader in Washington. I'm a proven leader. I'm in the House Democratic leadership. I'm poised at this point in time to take on this president, and I've been doing that just like I did this week when I marched in protest against what's happening at our nation's border, where this government is separating children from their mothers. It is antithetical to everything that I believe in, and that's what I fight for every day.
And you know what? If this organization is as fascist as you have called it,
I've said it's fascist.
And you have said it's fascist, then why don't you adopt the stance to eliminate it? This is a moral problem, and your response has been to apply more paperwork to this situation, to have ICE collect more information on immigrants, and that puts our communities in danger, and it also conveys a profound misunderstanding of how we should be approaching this problem.
You want to abolish ICE? What would be?
What I would suggest about that, and Kamala Harris today came out in opposition to this, because she knows, as I do, that simply abolishing the agency doesn't take it out of the hands of Jeff Sessions or this president. We know it's about making change in Washington. It's about Democrats taking back control of the House of Representatives. And that's what I'm about doing. Okay, that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to be successfully doing in this November.
Let me get some short questions, just because I'm not entirely clear on where you're both at. Rikers Island is in your district. Do you support closing Rikers Island?
Absolutely, in less than 10 years.
I was the second elected official to call for it after my cousin Elizabeth called for it first.
Okay. If elected, the first vote that you cast will be the most important one, which is for the leadership of the House of Representatives. Are you going to support Nancy Pelosi or somebody else?
My intention is to support Nancy Pelosi.
I want to see new options. I want to see what we have on the field.
Okay. The federal government has taken over NYCHA, or has inserted a monitor. What should NYCHA do going forward?
Well, first of all, we have to expand funding into NYCHA, and we need to address the immediate concerns of people not having water, not having not having heat, and holes in their walls. We need to address those immediate humanitarian crises first.
Let me be more specific. Should those involved in falsifying reports to HUD be prosecuted?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I guess finally, what's the best restaurant in the district?
Yeah, well, in my opinion, I love Daisy's in Sunnyside on Queens Boulevard.
Okay.
I like Taqueria Tlaxcali in Starling Ave.
Okay, very good. I want to thank both of you for coming in, and we're going to wish you the best of luck in the short remaining time.
Thank you. Thank you
for before the primary. If you missed any part of this debate, ladies and gentlemen, go online to ny1.com. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a minute.
Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working-class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has New York been changing for? Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us, and we deserve a champion. It's time to fight for a New York that working families can afford. That's why I'm running for Congress. This race is about people versus money. We've got people, they've got money. It's time we acknowledge that not all Democrats are the same. That a Democrat who takes corporate money, profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, cannot possibly represent us. What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, a federal jobs guarantee, and criminal justice reform. We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this. It takes political courage. A New York for the many is possible. It's time for one of us. Vote for Alexandria Ocasio Cortez on June 26th. Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working-class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has New York